Hello everyone, this is Karenna and today I'm going to be showing you my process of weaving a scarf. So right now I'm measuring out the warp threads. So for this scarf I want 4 yards long and it's going to be 14 inches wide. So right now I'm measuring the length going back and forth 4 times. And then I'm keeping a cross section at the top left here to keep my threads in order. So this is Moke's favorite part here. He loves to watch the yarn go back and forth, so I just got rid of him, throwing him that little tag there. So now I can finish up and cut the end off there and tie that end onto the last peg, and we're good to go with the warp. So now I'm going to be using these junk pieces of yarn that I just reuse for every project to tie off this cross section here. So this is pretty important to keep all the threads in order as they cross back and forth. So once we sectioned off each section, we can cut this warp threads to then put onto the loom. So just taking the bottom left corner, pulling that off there, and then we can cut those threads. Now we can just slide all the yarn off, making sure to keep those ties and crosses somewhat organized here. It's a little bit tricky when a thread gets loose, but so now we can just loop on that top left corner onto this metal pole on the back of the loom, and then these section off pieces we can slide these sticks through to just make sure that that cross is going to be staying still. Once we do that, we can untie the junk yarn and evenly space out all the thread onto that metal beam. So now, just working on spacing out the threads even more, we're going to section off in groups of 8 threads because we want 8 threads per inch for this specific scarf. This can vary, but 8 threads is pretty typical for most yarn sizes. So just take 8 at a time and section them off into these 1-inch segments. So now that we have that all done, this will be the final length of our scarf, 14 inches. So then we can wind back all that warp thread onto the back beam and untangle all of these threads in that same process, untangling, winding back, untangling, winding back. So now they're all untangled and we're ready to thread these threads through the heddles. So for this part of the setup, we want to section off these heddle pieces. They're little wire bands that have holes in the middle. So then we can take this little handy tool and use this to thread the warp threads through these heddle metal pieces. And so for this specific pattern, there's 4 heddles, and we want to thread the heddles through in the pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. And then just repeating that pattern over and over until we get through all of the heddles. So whatever pattern you're doing, this can change, but this is one of my favorite patterns to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. You can use this pattern, threading the heddles through, and then change up patterns as you're weaving. So I think this is a pretty cool pattern to have a lot of versatile patterns in one piece. So that's pretty cool. So once we do this, as we're going, we can group the threads into little ties just to kind of keep ourselves organized. I think these groups are 12, but you can do whatever's easier for you, smaller, larger. So then we're threading those threads through this beater. So pretty much the same process, but you don't have to worry so much about a pattern. They're all just going straight through. And now final step is to tie up these threads onto this front beam. So this is a little bit tricky because you definitely want the tension to be the same throughout all the threads. So once you got that done, the tension is good. Just double knot each one, make sure it's nice and secure. So now we are bringing back this junk yarn. You'll probably want a little bit more now, and we're just gonna put them through, weave them just normal, just so that we can spread out the warp threads so they're coming straight down instead of grouped at the bottom how they were with the knots. So now we get to just start weaving, and for this scarf I wanted to do the same white pattern all the way through. I think that's just such an elegant look. So this is the second day. Pretty much now it's just the same thing over and over, going through the same pattern. So yep, it's pretty time consuming, but I think it will be very beautiful when it is done. So how we threaded the heddles with that 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2 pattern, you have a similar pattern with pressing these petals. So you can do different petal variations here to get different patterns, but I think this pattern is very elegant and just very gorgeous. So now we are finished. All the woven fabric is down on this front beam, wound up, and it all came off that back beam there. So we get to cut the threads off now. This is such a satisfying part of weaving a project. Cutting these threads off and everything starts to flow and bend and look pretty. So, yay! Now we can just pull these threads through and the fabric starts to fold and drape and just looks so beautiful here. So this is very exciting. Now we can just unwind this beam and see all the fabric coming out. So now to fully take the fabric off, we're just going to untie. Oh, hi, Moke. So cute. Untie all of these knots that we tied on the front beam at the very beginning. So untie those, and then we can pull off this whole fabric and start to see how the scarf is going to look. So now we can pull it off, and there is our scarf. So a few more final steps. We are going to pull out that junk yarn now, so we won't see it in the final piece, of course. And there we go. So now we have a clean ending for our scarf. And the final thing to do is to just secure the ends so it won't unravel over time. I'm going to machine sew just along the very end and make that nice and secure. You can also create knots with that fringe part of your scarf This would be best if you want to keep the fringe. Here I'm just going to cut it off and create a straight edge for my scarf, but either way is very beautiful. I love the fringe look. Definitely too very much, but just trying to go for a straight across hem here. So just cutting off all of that fringe since we already secured it with the machine sewing. And here is our final scarf. So beautiful. This is quite long, 4 yards long, so here's a few styles you can choose. Wrap it up twice, make it chunkier look, and I love it. A little bit closer up of the pattern. So thank you all for following along. See you later.